Yeah. Okay. So, hi everyone. Welcome to our event. This event is brought to you by the Detox Club, which is a community of people who love data. We have weekly events, and today is one of such events. I think these are the last events we have this year. We don't really have anything planned for the rest of the year. Maybe something accidentally will pop up, but probably we will see each other next year. Or maybe there will be some surprise streams, I don't know. But if you want to stay tuned and do not miss our surprise stream, if it will happen this year, do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And we have an amazing Slack community where you can hang out with other data enthusiasts. During today's interview, you can ask any question you want. There is a pinned link in the live chat. So click on that link and ask your questions, and we will be covering these questions during the interview. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Actually, I did not check my audio. It's good, right?
Yes, at least I can hear everything.
It's like sometimes Zoom decides to use my built-in microphone instead of this one. And I think I'm speaking to this microphone, but actually the other one is recording. And this is annoying because the built-in one has echo, like it does not have noise reduction.
Noise cancelling, yeah.
And then like if I type something, it also captures that. So terrible. Anyways, and the questions that Johanna prepared.
Yes. If anybody's listening, I'm sorry that I'm going to speak with a bit of a sick voice. But we can go through this a bit slower cognition. Yes.
You're ready. We can start, right?
Yeah.
So this week we'll talk about linguistic fairness and socio-technical perspective on AI. I don't know what it means. We'll find out. We have a special guest today, Tamara. Tamara works on ML explainability, interpretability, and fairness as open source engineer at Probable. And you're the third person from Probable we have had in like last half a year, or since Probable exists, I guess.
That was Adrian and Guillaume, right? That were here.
Yeah, so it's really cool to have you. So Tamara is a maintainer of Fairlearn, contributor to Scikit-learn and SKOps. It's SKOps, right?
Ops, we call it. Okay. I don't know. People can pronounce it differently, maybe.
Okay, so we will stick to your way of pronouncing it, SKOps. So Tamara has both computer science and software engineering degree, as well as computational linguistics background. So welcome to our interview.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. It's lovely to be here.
And thanks as always to Johanna Bayer, who helped to prepare the questions for today's interview. So let's start. Before we go into our main topic of socio-technical, that's such a difficult word to articulate.
Socio-technical.
Socio-technical AI perspective.
Yeah.
So let's start with your background. So can you tell us more about your career journey so far?
Yes, I think you mentioned what I do right now. So I'm an open source software engineer, as everybody call each other in my team at Probable. And I kind of share my attention. As you mentioned, I maintain Fairlearn, so I have more responsibility there, but I also have been contributing to SCOPs, and we can talk about what that is later, maybe. And I sometimes contractually contribute to Scikit-learn as well, but in a bit of a lesser manner. And I also have been involved in computational linguistics research and kind of studying it for at least 4 years. I think it's now more. I'm just about to start a new research project. I'm still working on figuring out the scope. I'll also talk about that a bit later, maybe. But in a broader sense, in the last 15 years, since I finished my first computer science degree, I've worked mostly as a software engineer and in multiple areas. I spent about 5 years in music tech, and before that, a few years in civic tech.
Music tech.
Yes, music tech. That's how the area of people who do music production software and so on is called. And I have, in the last few years, I am working in the machine learning and specifically natural language processing area.
Okay, tell me more about music tech. Like, what is that?
So I've always produced music. I also have a music background. I played the violin. I went to music school for a really long time. But in 2000, I think it was 15, Yeah, 2015, I started a job at Ableton, which is the market leader for music production software. And I worked there as developer relations for a few months, doing open source stuff, interesting enough. And then I went to work at the hardware team as a software engineer for the rest 4 years or so. And what we did was an instrument, digital
Mm.
instrument. It was really, really fun to
So
do.
this like pedals for guitars or something like that, or
No, no.
like
For
keyboards?
example, like so this instrument, for example, is a console that I worked on. It was called Push, and I worked on the Push 2, I think, then at the time. Yes.
Hmm.
And it has little pads where you can sequence your music,
Hmm.
change it, make patterns, and you
Hmm.
have access to the whole other music production. So which is very complicated, a big kind of
Okay. Okay.
station on it.
So when I go to concerts and there is electronic music, so usually there is like a person, um, oftentimes there is somebody playing drums, and then there is a person with some sort of panel pressing buttons,
Yeah.
right? So that's the console, right?
Yes, but they're very different ones. Like
Yeah, I
they
can
have
imagine.
different scope, and our scope in my team was to create like a full instrument where you can just lose yourself looking at this, and you never have to look at your computer anymore
Mm-hmm.
to recreate this state of flow that you have when you play real instruments.
Mm-hmm.
But there are some consoles which are meant for just kind of steering the wheel of your music for live performances. They have smaller scopes. So there's like a really wide range. And you can also have DJing consoles, of course, which are different again.
Yeah. Yeah, I was always wondering how does this actually work? Because like they're pressing buttons and then music happens, but I have no idea what exactly is happening under the hood. But it's usually for electronic music.
But I can tell you how it is. It's really it's so so the main software was a legacy software 20 years old, I think, when I joined it already. And so it was written in C++. And historically, at some point, long time ago, before I joined or even done software professionally, somebody decided that they're going to do the hardware bindings with third parties in Python. And so we also follow that kind of standard. So we did the hardware bindings in Python, which I would tell someone that they find it really strange. But then the hardware bindings we had with them processed on the computer, there was a
Mhm.
cable. We're now going to process Python on this device. That will be really, really hard. There is a
Mhm.
device now that is standalone by the same company. I don't work there anymore, of course, but people can check it out. That is done a bit differently. And so this we would interact through Python with a C++ API, and all of that will be, executed on a computer. So in the computer, you have access to all kinds of powerful things to do music and sound and all the stuff.
Yeah, I
Actually,
see
quite fun.
usually in these performances, when there's live performance, in addition to this panel, to this console, they usually have a laptop, right?
They
So
do, yes.
this is where the computation is happening, right? For
Yes.
some of the things. Okay.
A couple of years there was a trend, there is a trend of making standalone kind of machines with the instrument in mind, or like losing yourself or jamming with others in a space that the computer doesn't distract you, because the computer is a distraction, a possible distraction in a sense, to break your flow. But those devices are quite expensive. They're expensive to
Hmm.
produce,
Hmm. So
expensive
it's
to
cheaper
buy.
to have a laptop and a panel.
It definitely is for a user, but a lot of people really this is their life, and they
Uh-huh.
save
Yeah.
and buy, and it's still quite a big market.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. So you did this music tech, and eventually you got into language and AI. Like, how did it happen?
Yes. I know it sounds really strange, but this was the plan all.
Not strange, but like interesting, let's say.
It's
Like after
it's very
music, doing
versatile.
this boring stuff with AI.
Yeah, I think if we wanna talk about how I ended up studying computational linguistics at this point in life after doing all of this other things like music tech, and I was involved with like the NGO CV tech area and so on. It's like ties so much with who I am, so we have to like revisit my life story in a sense. But I studied my first degree. I started it when I was 18, like most people. It was computer science, and it was fascinating. I did really well. But before I studied computer science and I got interested, I mean, computers were, that was in the middle of the 2000s, so that was quite new. Before that, I always have been a language nerd. I went to a language-focused gymnasium. How is it called in
uh,
English? High school? I don't know.
Gymnasium. Oh, well, I know in German it's called Gymnasium, right?
Yeah, it's a high school, I guess. Yeah.
But not just any high school. High school with
Yeah,
focus, I don't
yes.
know, stuff on
It was
certain subjects.
humanities, language focus,
Yeah.
and I did interesting. I did ethics. I did all the type of languages, looking at language as a phenomenon. I did Latin and other foreign languages. It was great. And then, but computers were really fun, and I did a lot of computers working at home. So I decided to go for a computer science degree. But I never really forgot this, first passion that I had that led me to that gymnasium. And later, as I was learning my computer science degree, in the late 2000s and early 2010s, a lot of machine learning was kind of emerging. And I was really started to be really interested in machine learning even then. But there was
Mm.
no need to study. I mean, I'm from Macedonia. We didn't really have this kind of things at the time around so much, or it was very, very little. And I somehow started reading all these books. Like there was a book called On Intelligence. I don't know who wrote it, which was discussing using machine learning methods to explore cognition. And it was like such a hook for me because then in my head was like, oh, language is this such the most human thing that we can think of that the brain does. And what if we explore cognition through language, which was something I started ordering myself neuroscience book from Amazon at the time in Macedonia, secondhand. And I decided to study computational neuroscience. And I did apply to a few places, but it didn't really work out. So I continued working as a software engineer. I had to apply outside of the country. And yeah, and many years passed by and this never went away. So I had like a moment to say, ah, I can't hear you.
Yeah, right, because I was muted. So
Okay.
music happened in between, but like your true
Yes.
passion was always machine learning.
Yes, I mean, I went to music school when I was young, and but it was it was a kind of a ping back to this old passion. But I really wanted to study. I think my biggest reason for coming back to computational linguistics because I really wanted. I didn't study computational linguistics only. It was a cognitive systems program, so a combination of cognitive science, computational linguistics, and machine learning, and like knowledge and
Mm.
reasoning module, quite complicated in that sense of what it all included. It was just a perfect blend for me. The first time I contacted them was 2014, and it took 6 years until I can enroll, and I was waiting
Mhm.
for the right moment. So this was,
Mhm.
a dream, the dream to do. I'm so glad that I got to do it.
Mhm. Are you still doing anything in related to music or music tech?
I still have Ableton Live on my computer, and yeah, sometimes. But I have never have been one of those people that have posted or shared music or something like that. I used to DJ when I was a teenager, going to parties
Okay.
and did a lot of that lifestyle. But yeah, it's just very rarely and just for me.
So you don't do like techno sets and Berghain?
No, no,
Not yet.
no. I think that is like the dedication to this, like a full-time job. I decided to do
Yeah, right.
programming, it seems.
Or like full time, because like if we talk about clubs, it's usually at night, right?
It is, but getting there, it's the music
Yeah.
industry. It's tough. It's
Uh-huh.
tough.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So this word that is difficult to pronounce, socio-tech,
Socio-technical. Yeah.
socio-tech. It's socio, not social, social
Well,
technical.
I call it like this. Let's say I
Socio.
don't. I guess somebody can
So,
pronounce it with a bit of much. I guess
so what is a social technical approach to model? Or what is first social technical and then like the whole thing social technical approach to modeling language?
I think there's a lot of this is a kind of a whole academic study of its own. But in order not to like waste the time on this, there's a lot of things people can read. I'll link some papers. We can think of looking at technology from a socio-technical perspective as is kind of how our technology and the social impact of our technology. And it could be seen in both ways, which is the social, how when we place the technology that we make in society, what kind of impact does it have? But also what kind of already social connotations and context is interwoven in this technology that we've made. So this can be very granulated, and there's like too with like thinking types of traps and formalism and solutionism and so on. But at the end, it's about the social context of the technology that we make. I think that is the most accessible
That
definition.
sounds quite abstract, if I'm being honest.
Yes, this
Do you have
is.
like some, uh, yeah, I mean, social impact of technology is also very broad.
Mhm.
Mm. So we're talking, well, what kind of technology is it like? We're talking about AI, right?
Yes, I
And
guess
like, is it something like ChatGPT now replaces copywriters? That's impact.
that is impact definitely. There's
Ah, okay.
so many different ways to measure this. Let's see. I think so in Fairlearn, as somebody coming to Fairlearn, and I came to Fairlearn as an engineer, because most of the other maintainers are scientists in the area and professors or researchers at big companies like Microsoft or Google. But I am still I'm still figuring out the theory of this particular approach. But in that sense, Fairlearn explores there is really I think one of the most real use cases that is explored because I think that is really tough in this case because not a lot of people share what they use fairness tools for, but is like credit loan decisions, for example. This is one of the real impacts. Like we can dissect this and talk about it because I was just presenting this to someone this weekend at the PyLadies conference, so it's at the top of my mind.
Mhm.
But for example, let's take making an algorithm that makes a credit loan decision, and
Mm.
it can make a decision to give it or not to give it based on how trustworthy you are. I forget the economic terms. I guess the
Banks
first
still
thing
use these things, right?
they're still used. They used.
Uh-huh.
People use this. And so the decision will be most likely made by training a model on previous data
Mhm.
points. And this data, the study that they wrote a white paper with Ernst and Young and Microsoft that is featured on the Fairlearn website was made with 300,000 data points. And after using the techniques that Fairlearn provides for disaggregated evaluation, I can explain maybe what's that a bit later, but it was found out that there are certain groups where the model would perform differently. And in this case, it was sex, as well, male and female applicants. And for example, to maybe think about, okay, so there was a certain type of data that we fed into the system that has its own potential of harm, but also the types of harm of using this algorithm can be not allowing someone to have an opportunity, but getting a loan. Or it was interesting to me because I've never thought about loans before that I read in the white paper, or giving a loan to someone that has very little chance of actually repaying it, which would cascade their life and throw it into a I don't know, disarray for forever. So you can get a false positive by saying somebody shouldn't get a loan and then deny somebody opportunity, or you can get a false negative and you can give someone a loan that they shouldn't get, but that
I did
also
not think about
harmful.
that. That
Hmm?
is actually that giving somebody a loan is not bad just for the bank, but also for the person.
I didn't think about it too. I learned from the white paper that I read is available. I'm going to link
Yeah,
it for
like it
people.
makes sense now
Yeah.
when you say that. But like in retrospective, it's not just something I thought. Like I thought for the person, like they would be happy because they got money for something, right? But actually, eventually in the future, they will have a lot more problems,
Yes. I
right?
think they
Okay.
they listed things like how does people called it? Come and take your stuff. The people coming to take all your stuff, losing
Hmm.
jobs and opportunities and so on because you are in debt and you cannot pay your debt
Hmm.
and so on. And in I mean a lot of other if they're parents and so this could be like a more serious, especially in the
Hmm.
US. So yeah, quite a big deal. And I think this really question that you said that we both didn't think about this illuminates one of the core things about fairness, which is
Hmm.
that it is abstract. There is not one way to define fairness. Um, and while Fairlearn addresses group fairness, which is how a specific technology or an algorithm in this case can affect can inflict harm on a group, on a sensitive group of some kind, we have to do problem definition and identify the groups affected and interpret the results of the models and of our mitigations or assessments ourselves in a context. And yeah, that is it's a lot.
But again, why do we need that? So if I think about maybe a different example uh,
Yes.
of hiring. So in hiring, we would rather not hire a good candidate than accidentally hire a bad candidate, right? And like
Yeah.
for us, the how they call it, false positive when we think somebody positive, like when we hire. Anyways, like if a
The
candidate
prediction
will
is
not,
higher or not higher. That is,
yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah.
that, yeah,
Prediction is higher or not higher, and if it's false negative, right? Then it's good.
higher for somebody bad,
Like
right?
we no, like when we hire somebody who is bad, it's not good for the company because it will be
Yes, of course.
difficult to then fire them. So it's better to be more strict and not hire good candidates rather than accidentally hire a bad one. And maybe with credits it's similar. So it's better not to give a loan to somebody who is potentially can pay back rather than give a loan to somebody and this person will not be able to pay back, right? So like what I'm trying to say is like, why do we even care about fairness? Like we are running a business. Shouldn't we be more concerned about like doing well as a company?
Ooh, ow. This is such a provocative. This is a trick provocative question.
No, I'm just thinking like where does fairness come into, because like at the end I want to optimize my revenue, right?
I understand, yes. But so I watched, so there's another Maintainer called Hilde. She's assistant professor at in the Netherlands. I forgot the university. I'm sorry, Hilde, if you're listening. Eindhoven, I think. It's she had this presentation where I listened to her speak about the context of hiring about this. And she said that we sometimes want to produce models that model the values that we want to see, even if the data doesn't contain them. And it comes down to the fairness is absolutely related to the values that we have. And the fact that we want to maximize revenue doesn't mean that we need to wreak social havoc on society because our
Not at
products are not separate from it. We do
all.
have some responsibility.
Uh-huh.
And then the interesting thing is that if somebody sits down and assesses this properly, the problem definition, and thinking about the problems, not just from a technical perspective, but also from a societal perspective, they could find, for example, Fairlearn has assessment tools, the symmetric frame, where you can assess these imbalances by instead of assessing a model with one metric, you assess the model by a specified, metric in for multiple groups where you can find, and then plot, and then you can make your own decisions what the model is doing. But if you want to mitigate this, there are several types of ways that you can have like a post-processing, like after you've done everything, train the synthesis and so on, you can rebalance the predictions or the results in a sense, or you can retrain the model with some like an algorithm. It's called exponentiated gradient. I can share a paper. The math is a bit, but there is an example on the website. And by thinking about the problem, maybe it is possible to find a way to mitigate these imbalances to also reflect the kind of world you want to see or the world that you don't harm by not reducing your performance or not significantly reducing your performance. So I think in this sense, it's very important that there is curiosity and
Mm-hmm.
somebody cares to sit down. There could be a solution that works okay for both
Mm-hmm.
cases.
Okay. So I'm just trying to understand what actually PyLearn or other tools in this space give us. Um, so if we talk about this again, it's an example of credit scoring.
Mhm.
So maybe my understanding is not correct and you'll correct me. So we have a model. Let's say
Mhm.
it's, I don't know, decision tree or logistic regression, something simple that tells us what should be the loan decision, right? And so we have this model, and then we use something like PyLearn that analyzes the performance of this model across multiple groups, cohorts. Let's say we have gender variable,
Yeah, you have
right?
to pass basically what your sensitive groups are. You have to think about this
Um,
yourself. Yes.
Because I was thinking there are some natural patterns that we want to discover with the model, right?
Mm.
Something like if this person is from a low income group, then it's more likely that they will not be able to pay back the loan, which is kind of apparent, right?
Yeah,
Probably, I don't know.
I guess.
Or I don't know, they have been unemployed 6 out of the last 12 months, something like that. Just making this up. Um, so these are the patterns we kind of want to use, but there are some patterns that we don't want to use. What
Yes,
if like
exactly.
there's gender and I don't know what else, like other things that could be sensitive. So we, as I don't know,
Disability, race, anything that's, I think
mm,
I was asking, I think this is it's important here to mention that I was also struggling myself, like, okay, if I have to advise someone now to use this and they have to make like their shape their own problem and so on, how do I, with my very limited worldview and experience, because I've had only one life and it's limited and I don't have all the experiences, how am I going to help someone to figure out which groups, as you say, are important here and which group we should protect? And there is no right answer to this. You have to understand the domain and the harms you can inflict case by case basis. And you can look at the data in an exploratory way to before you assess and pass the certain features
mm,
sort of to be segregated by.
mm. Would it be possible to, let's say, just throw in all the features we have and then have Fairlearn highlight what could be the problematic ones, and then we think, okay, this actually makes sense. We shouldn't, let's say, include this feature at all in our training data. Or, okay, this is fair because this is actually one of the patterns the model discovered, so we're keeping this feature.
I think yeah, the discovery. So let me explain this in a way that I also can. So when you ask so for example, if you write a pipeline and you pick like whatever scikit-learn model you're gonna pick or something, whatever in your pipeline that is going to be making these decisions, and then you pass a assessment tool from Fairlearn. And when you pass this, you also have to pass a bunch of sensitive features and so on. In a demographic case, um, they're more apparent. I don't know what it will be for some more abstract things, but you could technically do disaggregated evaluation of a model by every single feature if you want to. But the thing is then, what do you learn from it? How do you interpret this? The understanding is like when you get, for example, when you pass, we have this model and then we pass sex into it, and then we get this little, there's maybe we should have shown this little graph so people can understand what we're talking about. And then we can see how the false positive and the false negatives change between groups. And then if we contextualize this by asserting the harms that can be done by it, and seeing the disproportion by sex, then this makes sense. I don't think you can automate this fully, and I think the human is necessary in the loop to make this decision. I don't think you can just say them all, okay, find all the possible sensitive groups. I saw
Mm,
somewhere somebody using a fairness tool much more granular. I think it was a Microsoft presentation where they were looking at some data set about housing, and their sensitive groups were a combination of several features of some kind. And this is, again, very contextual. You have to, it cannot, an algorithm cannot tell you who's going to be harmed because it's grounded in the real world context. And this is where it comes that the word socio-technical is grounded in society. It's not just a technical thing.
yeah. Like you were able to read my mind because I was going to ask how is it connected to socio-technical thing we talked about. But so what I understand is at the end there is still a human, some sort of, let's say, domain expert
Mhm.
who can evaluate, who can, I think you said assert the harm, right? Who can
Yeah,
understand the
we
harm
can understand the harm. Yeah.
that is done. So we look at false positives, false negatives, and think, okay, like in the case of false positive or false negative, what is the harm that the model has on the kind of impact the model has on the individual?
If any, right? There might
Any,
not be none. And
yeah.
also, this is, I think, the false positive and false negatives with the equals odds metrics. There were four different ones, and I sometimes forget them because I'm not a scientist in the area. For example, there's like demographic parity as a metrics where you want to
Mhm.
see like balance. and so on. So not everything, not all the false positive, false negatives, a combination or a
Mhm.
balance is matters in every case. You have to
Mhm.
decide. I guess you can plot kind of a distribution with all the different kinds of metrics for the sensitive features, and then you can reason you're as a human,
Mhm.
okay, which of these am I supposed to use mitigation for? Like,
Mhm.
should
Okay.
I strive for balance? Is that going to be fair? Or should I strive for the reduction of false positive? Is that going to be fair? But unfortunately, it cannot be only a technical solution. And this is where the socio-technical comes.
Mhm.
But if you ask me, I mean, most of the products that we do have a socio-technical component because they're made by people for people.
Mhm.
And yeah,
And who should do this? Like, let's say if we talk about the hiring, I don't know if actually hiring
yeah.
models exist. Maybe they no longer. I heard that there was a model at Amazon, but there was some stories around this. Maybe they just removed it. Um, but
Internal that they had.
yeah, I've heard that they had something like that, and then they discovered some issues, exactly this kind of issues like prejudices and biases with this model. Um, so we can probably talk about this loan decision, which, as you mentioned, this kind of models are still used in the industry. Um, so I was thinking, where was I going with that? Uh,
It is used a lot. I think I'm gonna check.
So what I wanted to ask is like, who is going to make this assessment? Like, okay, a false positive is harmful and false negative is not harmful, for example.
Well, the team creating this should make it. They should
How
have
like
some competence.
how how I as a data scientist can make
Mhm.
this call?
Yeah, this is also my concern because I feel, and you know what? It's very interesting. I spoke to someone recently that told me that they have been feeling this like freeze and reluctance to even get into the topic of responsible AI or even try to use the tools because of this fear of like, am I really gonna do the right thing? If I start thinking about this, it's very overwhelming and so on. But I think as domain experts, we should understand the impact of our
Mhm.
products on other people.
But I'm like, let's say I'm a technical person. I'm not necessarily yet, or
Mhm.
maybe I will never be a good domain expert because I'm a data scientist. I learned how to use, I don't know, support vector machines in my studies. I
Uh-huh.
did not study sociology.
It's
So
enough
like
to be curious, right?
somebody in the team, but again, then I'm kind of shifting my responsibility towards somebody else, saying like, hey, this is not my domain expertise. Like, let's get somebody else to, like, I'm just wondering how it should work. Uh,
I
so
think in
probably
bigger
there's always like
companies,
a,
sorry, in bigger companies, they have these people that probably do this and assess this. I've never worked in a bigger company. I wish to have some insight, but this is all very secret, and I should probably talk about this because it's really interesting and shines like on the whole industry part. But in smaller places, I think people's curiosity leads this,
Mhm,
asking questions.
mhm,
And this is one thing that, so you don't, these tools I'm talking about, this equals odds or demographic parity or like exponentiated gradient or whatever, all these names that I'm mentioning, you don't really need Fairlearn to use these tools. These are techniques that you can just implement in your own notebook. What is a plus in tools like Fairlearn is that you get education and help with thinking about the problem. And that is actually our main focus for the next months is improving the learning objectives and education materials. And hopefully people will come also help us and contribute that want to learn, because the best way to learn is to teach, I guess. And by reading, if you're a data scientist, I'm like, okay, there is some tool that I might use, but I will feel very overwhelmed with defining what do I do? How do I make a decision? And is it going to be right? Am I going to do more harm? Maybe just going over the basic problem definition theory things already will help quite a bit with the framework of thinking, because there is a framework to think about these things that it's rooted and then in this little tiny components and so on. But it doesn't have to be perfect. None of this can be perfect, right? There is no perfect solution. There's no perfect solution for assessment because as machine learning people, right, we never can model fully the real world as much as we want to. There is the irreducible error of not modeling the real world that is always
Mhm.
there. It's calculated into it. And
Mhm.
second, we cannot fully mitigate something. We
Mhm.
just don't have the information. I guess we have to be curious and live with a little bit of
Mhm.
ambiguity. Do
Yeah,
our best.
I was also in the meantime reflecting back on my personal experience when it comes to like making these sort of decisions. I
Mhm.
was working in a moderation team, and there we
Mhm.
needed to make a decision whether something should go. So it was a marketplace, online marketplace,
Mhm.
um, and we were making a decision whether something should go live and people could buy it, or it should be blocked and not be visible, right?
Mhm.
And then I remember we were talking about things like, okay, like, did this seem like there are features like, or maybe I shouldn't go into describing features. They might still be used. But anyways, like I remember that we were looking at the performance of the model, and it was data scientists, uh, and product managers, and also fraud experts, like people
Mhm.
who are fraud specialists. So we were sitting together and thinking, like, also sometimes just looking at things case by case. Like, okay, this is the case, this is the decision this model made. Like, was it a good decision, and what could be the consequences, right? So I think that probably is in line with the curiosity you mentioned, but
Yes.
also kind of as a data scientist, I might not necessarily have all the domain expertise. I have the technical expertise. That's why we also had these fraud specialists and also
Mhm.
product managers. So product managers represented the users, and the fraud specialists, they have the domain knowledge of the fraudsters, like how the fraud is actually happening. I think when we were in the group, that was really helpful.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right. So
Absolutely.
so sometimes it's not just up to one person to the
Yeah.
data scientist who is developing the model, but like the team.
Yes. I think you mentioned something really important. That is the human in the loop, which
Yes,
is
right.
a central component to um, all AI systems if we want them to be fair. We need the human in the loop. It's
Yeah,
necessary. And you were that human in the loop before that this
yeah.
decision can be propagated and do actual
Yeah.
harm.
And also there are moderators in this specific case I was talking about. So there are people who actually look at the output of the models and make the final call.
Yeah, exactly. This is already quite a big deal.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And also, it's like I got while you were talking, I got a notification and then
Uh-huh.
thought, okay, like it's really good. We were talking about music, right? And these panels, consoles that get detached from a computer. So you can be like, do the whole thing without a computer because computers can be uh,
Distracting.
Distract,
Yeah.
destructive, yeah, can distract you. And this is exactly what happened, right? So I got notification, I got distracted.
Yeah,
Uh,
and I mean, if you want to create music, you really want to be in a, is it
yeah,
any
you have to
art?
be
I mean,
slow.
with programming as well, don't we want to be
Yeah,
into it when we're doing it? It's the
yeah,
best work that we do when we're really into it for 5 hours when you don't go to the bathroom and you don't drink water and the work
yeah,
is
right.
done, the best work.
Oh, it hasn't happened to me like for quite some time.
I think you have a very multidisciplinary job now. And
Yeah,
this is, yeah, there is beauty in that job, though. You can also have a flow with working with people.
uh,
That is, I used to call it like I get high from like this joint work that we do sometimes.
mm,
Yeah.
yeah. So when I was a data scientist, not like data science lead or whatever, like when I was just a data scientist, when I didn't have any meetings, I could just come in the morning, open my laptop and work, and then all of a sudden realize that it's already evening. That's really cool.
That is the flow. That
Yeah,
we
yeah.
cannot, but we are tied to our computer though.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, we are. Um, so what actually made you like? How did you get involved in the project? Because
yes.
last time we spoke, you were not like Probable did not exist at all.
No.
So how this happened? Like, how did you were doing NLP? I know. Um,
I mean, still am, you know,
and yeah, I
on the
mean, so
side.
for you, it's not a completely It's not like changing from music tech to, I don't know, doing NLP. So it
Yeah.
was kind of natural, but like tell us how it happened. How did you end up, if it's the right word? Like how did you start working with Fairlearn at Probable?
I think the story from joining Probable starts sometime in 2023 in the summer, I guess. But it was very informal. I went to a PyLadies meetup here in Berlin. There was a Scikit-learn.
2023. Like when did the company
No,
appear?
2024. No,
2024.
2024 is now. 2023, yes, in the summer.
Yeah.
Company doesn't exist, but I met the guys that made the company there. There was a meetup in PyLadies Berlin, and it was about Scikit-learn contributor meetup. And I just went for fun. And then the thing I started to work on was really fun. And I made another 3, 4 pull requests that got merged.
Just
And
like
I
it
started working with them. That was in Scikit-learn. That was, I
learned.
think, at the beginning of this year and the end of last year, something like this.
Hmm.
I was still doing, actually until April this year, I was doing research with a research group on semantic alignment, which I don't know if people are going to be interested in, but it's we were drafting papers and so on, and that was. And then I was also doing this on the side, so I don't forget how to do programming because programming in academia, it's not it. And so but I've been also contributing to open source, and it's probably my first internship. I did Google Summer of Code in 2010, and
Hmm.
that was a long time ago. So for me, this was a way to have fun.
Hmm.
And then I kept in touch, and when they were creating the company, they invited me to apply. There were a lot of
Hmm.
people applying for I think the titles are the same for everyone. I'm not sure. We're all called open source software engineers, and if I'm wrong, people can find out on the website. I
Hmm.
am not sure because they were kind of forming the open source team. And people focus on different things. I think I can share a link. There is like what are the priorities of the team. You'll work on something different. But I already worked at the time on explainability in language models and reasoning before it was really popular right now, and we did it a bit more rudimentary than what it's done right now because I already knew some of the theory. So they needed somebody to work on the scikit-learn inspection package. I don't know if people know it, but it's where you have the feature important stuff, and it's not very big at the moment. And at the same time, Probable was kind of committing of supporting the extended family, how do I call it, of scikit-learn libraries or libraries that are compatible with scikit-learn. And some of those libraries were also Fairlearn and SCOPS.
Hmm. And
And
this Scikit-learn inspection package, what is that? Is it
it's
what
the package
became?
inside. It's the package inside.
Uh-huh.
It's inside the library.
Uh-huh.
It's like
And what does an inspect?
sklearn dot inspection, I guess.
What does it? I don't think I know about this.
I think it has PCA and stuff like this inside at the moment. Um,
CA. Okay.
inspection, do they?
So I'm checking it. Inspection. So they have partial
Yeah,
dependence,
inspection. Yeah, there is like it's really not so big at
permutation,
the
feature
moment.
importance.
Yeah, you
Okay.
have permutation feature
Right.
remove. Yeah, and there's also some smaller other methods. And the whole point was that we want to extend this, and we
See,
might
see.
as well.
It's
Uh,
fairly new, right? I don't remember seeing this inspection.
no, I think I
Ah,
used it a couple of years ago.
okay.
Um, I don't
But
know how
fairly
new.
new, I mean, like I started using Scikit-learn more than 10 years ago. You probably
Okay,
too,
yeah,
right?
then it might be newer, yes. But yeah, I don't remember exactly when it's created. I remember using it at university, but I did university
Google
again very
found
recently.
recommendations from Scikit-learn 1.5.2,
Hmm.
which has been a while, well, which has been around for some time, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's again not so much time. But I remember using permutation feature importance at university for a project from here. Um, and I mean, the whole interpretability and explainability in the sense is something that I'm building expertise on slowly, and it's going to take a little bit of time. I think in the next few months, since I'm rejoining a research project, I might work on that a bit less than planned and mostly focus on Fairlearn, and yeah, I think that's how it's going to end up. But and this last month, since I joined in May, I did work on a lot of things. I got to do a little enhancement, which was not and check array in Scikit-learn and some other PRs that are still being reviewed, like the bigraph, improving some computation, the bigraph algorithms and so on. And Scopes and Scopes and Fairlearn, the most interesting thing is that I mostly worked on cross-library compatibility, which means that I had to make all Fairlearn estimators compatible with Scikit-learn as well as some of the API. And the same thing for Scopes now that are changing to Scikit-learn 1.6. I think it was released now. So there will be a lot of compatibility issues. People should check it out. And yeah, but my work has been very engineering kind of focused.
Mm.
And during this interview, we kind of tested a lot of machine learning stuff, I guess. But at the end, the need was the most for these packages. And to be honest, I was really interested in working with Fairlearn anyway, so it was really a great fit. Yeah, so I guess to finish the story, that's that's how that happened. Most of the other part of the team, they mostly work on Scikit-learn. If people open the website and check out, there is like an open source priorities, they could see that people mostly work on Scikit-learn.
So I actually asked ChatGPT when the inspection model in Scikit-learn was introduced. So it was introduced in version 0.22, which was released in December 2019, but it might be hallucinating. So I don't know if it's correct.
I remember using the permutation feature importance in a project in
Maybe
2021
it was
or
maybe it was like
2022.
it could also be in a different package, but then
Yeah, it
moved.
could be. Yeah, I don't know if that was.
So what is
Don't know
scopes?
the history. Yes, scopes. Yeah. So I cannot talk so much about the internals, but I can say what it is. Scopes was, I believe, originated from Addenstein at Hugging Space, but it's kind of an independent library. And it's the biggest, well, it has this integration with the Hugging Space Hub where you can publish your Scikit-learn models, basically bring them into production. You can also, I think the biggest benefit is the secure persistence, which
Mhm.
basically, I don't know if you've seen this. There was a big Bloomberg article about people downloading malware through loading models from Hugging Face and similar platforms. Did you see it
I
was a
have
big uproar on
seen it
LinkedIn?
in LinkedIn. Yeah, I did not read. I
Yes.
don't know the details, but I
Yeah,
saw
I
that.
think maybe people that listen have seen it. Yeah, so this, for example, was because of the known problems with Pickle that can allow untrusted types to be packaged there, and then when you basically unpickle the model, then you run things that you don't want to run, and then you make a mess. But Scopes
Finding
offers
deployments, right?
secure persistence where you have to define, you basically have full control of defining, and it won't open, or these objects will not load them if they are in the untrusted types.
Mhm.
Yes.
So SCOPS stands for Scikit hops, or
Don't remember. What
maybe
is
it's like
it's called?
Scikit-learn ops.
It's like-
Basically, this is like a way to deserialize models, right?
Yes, exactly. Secure I cannot say that word in English. Deserialization. It's so
Coding,
hard
coding,
for a
secure coding.
Slavic tongue. It's the yeah, whatever. People don't understand. Secure
Right.
serialization and deserialization.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is SCOPS, and SCOPS and Fairlearn aren't really related in a
I
sense that
know.
there's no common theme, but you're still involved in both. Like, how did it happen?
I know. Well, how did it happen? I signed a contract for it, I guess. And so, but I haven't been so involved. We pair programmed on a few things with Adrian together, and I was so Scikit-learn 1.6 introduces API breaking changes and some other things because things are moved around. I guess people are going to know in the next few days. They should really check out the compatibility guides. And the biggest work I did was work on making Scopes Scikit-learn 1.6 compatible, which involved a lot of smaller changes. And then a lot of those changes basically spilled over Scikit-learn, and then Scikit-learn had to fix them, and then we had to integrate them, and that happened several times. So it's all this compatibility work I did. I also did this with Fairlearn several times. I got to know a lot of Scikit-learn internals now, and especially how the estimators are written and how they should be written. I'm gonna make a talk about creating custom estimators in January in Berlin, but
Which meetup?
PyLadies. I think
Well,
exclusively picking them.
uh,
But yeah, I don't think our meetup landscape in Berlin is suffering a little bit, I have to say. There are not a
so,
lot of choices.
yeah, it's been a while since I went to a meetup. I think the last one was the AI Street Smart. Do you know this one?
No.
Okay. So,
Does it still
and
exist?
AI Street Smart, yeah, I think it was like 3 months ago or 2 months ago. So not that long. I mean, before that, I went to PyDate, I think. Yeah.
I contacted PyData, I think, and PyBerlin, but I never heard back to have this
Mm,
talk there. So I don't know how active are people. The pandemic kind of broke
mhm.
the system a little bit, and
Yeah.
we haven't fully recovered. That's why I love the PyLadies. I've been a PyLady for over 10 years, and
Mm.
I'm happy to go there and speak.
But you're
Um,
also one of the organizers, or you're
no,
just you're just an active, very active
there.
participant.
I am
So
just
you're
there.
behind
Yeah.
the curtain.
Yeah, I mean the PyLadies, when I came to Berlin in 2013 and worked briefly at Startup Bootcamp with a startup, I that was the first contact with the community I had. They let me have a talk there, and it was a long time ago. And for me, like it's a central part of me moving to Berlin, being a PyLady, and I
Mhm,
love going back every single chance that I have.
mhm,
Plus, the people organizer are really doing a great job and sacrificing a lot of their time. We just had a PyLadies Con this weekend where I got to have a Fairlearn sprint,
mhm,
and it was really nice to have people contribute. We don't have so many active contributors because a lot of people find the whole thing we now just discussed. It's intimidating, the theory, the maths behind the approaches, and a lot of the code base. It's written in a very academic way. We're gonna do a big refactoring project now,
mhm.
where I get to replace pandas with narwhals, which is really cool. And we also refactor the whole metric frame, so people maybe can come contribute. We have made lots of good first issues for the PyLadies Con, so maybe other people would be interested as well. They're not PyLadies.
Yeah. That's interesting because you were able to read my mind again. I don't know how you do this, because the question I wanted to ask you is if somebody is interested in contributing to FairLearn, how they can do this. And if you live in Berlin, then you can go and join the meetup, right? And then there would be contributions, um, like the thing you just mentioned.
No, there should be a sprint, but where people can come and
Not
contribute to Fairlearn, but it's going to be probably in the second month of the year, around
okay,
February. But
and it's
in
not
January, I'll just have a talk.
mhm,
But people
okay.
can talk to me, of course. I'm so happy to hear. We have a Discord channel, which I
It's good.
check all the time,
Mhm,
and people are free to come and ask
mhm.
questions. There's also
And
good first issues and other help wanted labeled issues that I prune constantly, so people can just take.
okay, I Discord channel for PyLadies or Discord
No, for
channel for
FairLearn. For
okay,
FairLearn.
okay,
It's
okay.
quite a lot of people are there. It's about uh 370, 380 people are there. It's a bit
How do
quiet.
I find this Discord channel?
On the website of Fairlearn, fairlearn.org, there is a link, invite link on the top right.
PyLearn.org.
We also have a LinkedIn page that I made recently because we didn't have LinkedIn presence, and I have been posting good first issues there recently to
So I was able to find, so if I scroll all the way down, I see the Discord icon.
yes.
And then if I click on this, then it brings me to the Discord community. Cool. And then you said in GitHub, you have a bunch of good first issues
Yes, there's good first issues, and there's also a label called Help Wanted. I've been
wanted. Yeah.
labeling a lot of things with Help Wanted, but Help Wanted could be more ideal for people that have some contributing experience. They don't need to learn the cycle, GitHub workflows or something
Mhm,
like maintainer reviews and so on. There are a lot of people have to learn that too, right?
mhm.
And there are lots of different things to contribute. One, of course, that would be really nice is for people who want to learn a little bit about the theory and teach other people. There's lots of things to add to the documentation and write and explain for education purposes. But there's also a lot of statistics work. So people that are experienced statisticians, there is an issue about testing statistical integrity of the methods and so on. That will be really great to get some people to work on. And yeah, so I think one thing is important to mention that the library has this ethos, so to say, of that was already there when I joined as a maintainer, that no new methods are added unless they're peer reviewed, because we're talking about fairness here. And this is already so wishy-washy in a sense, and the science is never fully, we don't have a technical solution that you can, is so grounded in contextualize, right? And so the ethos is that a method has to make sense, has to be really tested and peer reviewed and accepted by the wider scientific community. So just coming by and suggesting something that is not that, it's not going to work. This, of course,
Similar to
needs to
Scikit-learn,
grow.
right?
Hmm?
The same
Sorry?
ideology as with Scikit-learn. Like it has to be time proven.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's so hard. Yeah, this is why writing custom estimators make sense, because they have 207, I think. The last time there's a command you can run to see how many estimators are there in Scikit-learn. And I think it was 207. And people are like, oh, why would they make a new one? But there are a lot of cases where you want to make yourself a meta estimator or something like this. So yeah. And Fairlearn, I guess, has the same kind of ethos. But in fairness, you want to also yourself be really careful about what you want to implement.
And I just put the link to Discord. So there was a question, share the Discord link, please. I just put it in the comments in the live chat, and I will also put it to
Oh,
the
it'd be so
description.
lovely for people to come and work on this. And I think when I first opened the documentation on Fairlearn, I was like, oh my God, all this academic speak. But once you start working with it, looking at the code and so on, even for somebody that doesn't come from this particular scientific background, it is more clear. And the nicest thing is that you can use it in Scikit-learn, existing Scikit-learn pipelines, because the most work I've done this 6 months was make sure that this works. And if it doesn't work with your particular pipeline and estimators that you're using, please just do an issue and we will take care of it.
Yeah.
Which we are doing release this week, very likely, by the way. So I guess there will be new stuff. I have to do it tomorrow.
By the way, funny thing is, so last time when I was, so the way it works, so we do an interview, then there is a transcript, and I edit the transcript with ChatGPT. And ChatGPT breaks down when it sees probable. So when it's written with dot, so it replaces the name with a line break for some reasons. I don't know if it's fixed or not, but like it really, so the name of the company breaks ChatGPT. So I don't know how you did that.
That is funny. I
Yeah,
guess
it's
some
funny.
tokenization there is like
Yeah, because like
bringing.
it's a very unusual token because it has a dot at the end, right?
Yes,
And then like it's
it
also
does Grammarly
misspelled.
finds it an
Yeah.
issue as well. You have to add it to the dictionary as like a full name. Sometimes I check my stuff there.
Okay. Well, that's all we have time for today. So Tamara, thanks a lot for joining us today, for sharing your knowledge, experience. All the stories about music were also quite interesting. And yeah, it was really nice talking to you. So it's been a while, and I'm happy we finally talked. And yeah, and thanks everyone for joining us today too and listening in.
Thank you. Yeah, I hope everyone considers coming to contribute, even if it's for the issues that are less time consuming. And yeah, if you have any questions, please add me on LinkedIn. I'm really happy to talk to anyone that has questions.
And if you're in Berlin, check the PyData meetup. Next
PyLadies.
time, PyLadies
PyLadies.
meetup
Yes,
in January.
in
You will talk
January.
about Fairlearn there, right?
No, I'm going to talk about writing custom estimators in Scikit-learn, but I will show a custom estimator from Fairlearn. So I guess sort of.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, so that's it for today. Thanks everyone
Thank you for
and
inviting